sacrament of marriage is a covenant between a man and woman. The couple mutually give to and receive each other through love and service to God. Marriage is the foundation of the Christian family, the domestic church. We witness God's gift of the sacrament of marriage on the wedding day. Then, the real work begins of growing that bond of love as Christ loves His church. Long after the wedding day and honeymoon, couples continue to grow in fidelity, kindness, communication, and mutual assistance. Their love continues to grow far beyond and much deeper than the initial romantic love. On a biannual basis, the parishes celebrate the bond of marriage by honoring those who are married. As I visit with our families, I often hear their stories of struggles and challenges the husbands and wives overcame together. These stories inevitably come back to a deep desire of the husbands and wives to maintain their commitment of faith in God's grace, hope for better days, and love.
Three things that when you die, God is going to ask you. First, who am I to you? Secondly, where is your spouse in relationship to me because of you? And thirdly, where are your children in relationship to me because of you?
I think too often in our church, we saw marriage as being the church's responsibility is to get you to the aisle. And then after that, you're on your own. We have to change that. We have to support married couples after they are married.
Marriage is the bedrock of society, and we can see what happens when marriages fall apart and the fallout from it. We can see the impact on children. We can see the long-term impact of divorce. And again, not that the church is saying that someone has to stay in a marriage that is abusive or extremely dysfunctional, but we have to take this role as husband and wife in this covenant relationship seriously. And in our own view as Catholics, it's a reflection of the relationship between God and His people. It's that covenant relationship.
Everything we have springs from the marriage and family relationship, and it's how well or how poorly that we do at home that's going to determine how well or how poorly our society will be.
What the church has been trying to do is to create the home of love, to create the place of love, to create a civilization based on love. And love is worth the effort. That's the main thing. We think it's going to be so much better if we could just walk away from our spouses or if we could just ignore having children. But the effort that it takes to sustain those relationships is worth it. That's the real point. And that's what the church has been trying to tell us all along.
God loves you so much that He wants you to experience His love. And therefore, when you as a husband and a wife, when you show that love to one another, that human love is not going to be sufficient. You need that power of God's love so that you're not just showing the physical love. You're not just showing, I love you because I need you. I love you because you make me feel good. I love you because of who you are and because I want you to be a fuller person. And God, I ask your grace to be able to love this person this way. And that's what the sacrament is. The sacrament is that grace that God gives you, grace of love, to be able to love this person with the warts, with all the imperfections, with all the difficulties, that I see beyond that. And I see this person who is lovable.
Marriage is not a perfect relationship. It's one in which two people are invited to grow in their relationship. And I think that, especially with the way in which we tend to celebrate weddings, they're grand events, there's a lot of pressure on newly married couples to think that somehow, as they step out of that wedding dress and that tuxedo, that they're supposed to already be this perfect couple. And we say no, that they rely upon God's grace and grow to become what they are as a husband and wife.
We have to come to understand that marriage is not about ourselves. It's about that ability to die to oneself for the sake of the beloved. But of course, in our society today, we've been conditioned ever since we were little kids that life was all about us. But yet we come to this thing called marriage where we're supposed to die to ourselves for the sake of the other person.
A couple that's adrift in the culture right now, the best that they can hope for is that their well-meaning friends will gather around them and say, gee, I hope it works out, hope you don't argue too much, and don't get divorced. That's a really low bar. That's like a kid in school who's just aiming to pass. If you miss a little, you fail. And American marriages are failing about half of the time. The church just has a better idea. Says, make it your whole life, make it your vocation. Convince this guy he's loved and lovable. What's it going to take? I've got to figure out a guy, then I got to figure out this guy, and what are my resources, and what are my obstacles, and really to throw myself into that. And then they tell me, well, love him the way Christ loves. Well, wow, that's a pretty high bar. Even if I miss it a little, I'm going to be safe. And so it really has been that ambition for our marriage that has taught us that we didn't have to settle for just getting along, that we could be passionately in love.
When you get married, you don't look over your shoulder to think, is today the day he's going to walk out? Or is today the day I'm going to throw in the towel? When you get married, you have the attitude that the Greek generals had. We've landed, we burn the ships. We triumph or we perish. That's it. No looking back. We need to have a little bit more of that type of spirit to sustain the culture of love, because love is work, but it's worth it.
Love is possible. Love is real. It's real in our life. It's real in the lives of other couples. And that gives us a tremendous sense of hope. That the good years are not behind us. The good years are ahead of us. Even after 40 years of marriage, we can say that with all of the faith and conviction of our hearts, that there's always more to learn about each other, always a new way to learn how to love each other better.
If God is the center of the marriage, they have every chance of being successful. I find that when God is not at the center of the marriage, they have nothing to hang on to. They have nothing to call them back together. You hurt me, I forgive you. I can't say that unless God is part of my marriage. If I'm going to love you, I got to love you unconditionally. I can't do that unless God is part of the marriage.
We are all bombarded by society to give up, give in, and betray what Jesus taught about love and life, which is paramount to the institution of marriage. As Christians, Catholic couples, married people, we are called to maintain the ideals and keep the commitment they made at the altar. As a culture, we are sending couples out unprepared and unaware. I call on our parishes in the Diocese of Des Moines to collaborate, to strengthen, and make vibrant the culture of marriages rooted in God's plan. I am designating the year 2011 and beyond as beginning the process of marriage building in parishes in cooperation with our Diocesan Marriage Ministry Office. We will focus time and resources to strengthen and support marriages throughout our 83 parishes in the Diocese of Des Moines. During our centennial year in the Diocese of Des Moines, we kicked off a 5-year effort to encourage parishes to become marriage-building parishes. That is, we are encouraging more of our local faith communities to emphasize marriage as a sacrament, as a vocation, as a covenant with God. Becoming a marriage-building parish doesn't happen overnight. Like with building any strong, firm structure, there are building blocks that need to be laid. Some of these include building leadership, preparing youth and young adults in the faith, and creating a culture of life. Central to the mission of these families, and therefore marriage-building parishes, is the task of evangelization, making Jesus Christ known and loved in our times by choosing to live on the basis of the gospel at every moment. I encourage you to join us in supporting marriage as a sacrament, as a special gift from God, and as a vocation calling. Marriage is more than a one-time answer. Rather, it's a lifelong experience that brings peace and happiness. May God bless all of you in your efforts in this endeavor.